Have you turned the camera on?
Cool. Right, ready? And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm Daniel, and I'm here to interview Paul Wady. Is that correct, Paul?
Paul Wady, yes. Not everyone gets it right.
About his book, Guerilla Aspies. Paul is Asperger's, a snob term as he calls it, and is part of the autistic spectrum. He is married and works for the NAS, which is the National Autistic Society. At 41, the age of 41, Paul was diagnosed with Asperger's. First question, Paul. How do you feel when you got your diagnosis?
Well, I don't like the term Asperger's syndrome. It's not really a proper clinical term. It's something people use to differentiate them from people who can't look as neurotypical as they can. It's basically, I just call myself autistic. I put myself down with everybody, the professors and the people who can't not wear incontinence trousers. I just don't like that differentiation, as if you're something special if you've got Asperger's syndrome, but everyone does it. There seems to be a need in our society to define yourself as strong, intelligent, sexy and capable. Yeah. Oh, I've got Asperger's syndrome. It's like you're a savant, you can calculate maths to 1,000 places. I can tell you about every single bathroom fitting used in a Holiday Inn since 1979. Oh, well, amazing. You can justify yourself in normal societal terms. You must be alright, even if you are autistic. Oh, it's not autism. Asperger's syndrome is a form of autism. It's autism. You're just autistic, but you're trying to sound like something that you're not. You're just trying to sound smart when you're autistic. I'm just autistic. And that's how I feel about getting diagnosed autistic. I think that I found out when I was 41. And the best thing ever happened to me is that I found out what I was. I found the answer to the question I'd stopped asking, because I was so good at handling being what I was and finding people to accept me and surviving in the world and having a laugh. And didn't have these comorbid issues that seem to be like standard issue in the world of autism. You always got to have depression, you always have instability, you always got, I didn't have these bloody problems, I'm a cheerful chappy. And so when you got diagnosed, as you can read about in the Guardian Weekend magazine, October 2005, because I got arrested. And by the time, like you do, when you come from Liverpool, and by the time I'd been acquitted, of course, I got a £1,200 diagnosis for autism, high functioning autism, as with, you're autistic but you can do things really well. And I'm like, thank you, clinician, and may I say, you're very smart for a woman. I can do it, you do it to me, I do it to you, mate, Yeah. I didn't go to Cambridge University, so I have learning difficulties. I can't really run the 100 metres in a respectable time. I have physical handicaps. What else is wrong with me? My handwriting's a bit bad, so I've obviously got something wrong there, My hair's going now because I'm old. Oh, I've got an age handicap. It's all relative. Winners, losers, rich, poor. Yeah. High functioning, low. What do you mean? There were racists in websites in America talking about high and low functioning black people. That's how bad the term is. We shouldn't use high and low functioning at all. Right. So what are you going to say? Are you a rich autistic or a poor autistic? Are you a fat person or a thin person? Paul Wady has autism and is good looking. Many people with autism are ugly. Yeah, it's stupid, this language. There's always got to be, so when you get a diagnosis, how I felt was that there's always got to be these caveats attached to define you. Yeah. And I'm sick of all this. I'm just some autistic. You can put me in with all these, everybody else who's on the spectrum, all the lowest functioning people, all the highest functioning people. I'm just an autistic, alright? And if you want to project on me for all your ideas about autism and what that means, that's fine by me, because I love it when people underestimate me. Actually, as an autistic adult, I know that you're always sooner or later going to get overwhelmed and always going to get defeated in a given situation with enough high-functioning neurotypicals, normal people. What the hell is normal? So bring it on. I don't mind being called autistic, and because I was diagnosed autistic, I ended up meeting the wonderful Daniel and Helen Smith, that magnificent and beautiful couple, who came all the way to London from their native north in order to bring sanity, civilization and neurodiverse style to this way. Isn't that right, Daniel? It was a lovely fellow, Daniel.
What inspired you to write the book?
I'm a very sick man who just wants to cause trouble. I went to former head of publishing in the charity where I work, and I gave the woman an idea of this book I've been conceiving, and I spent 6 years trying to work out how to write the book after I got my diagnosis. I knew I wanted to say something, but what vehicle was I going to use to explain my experience and to put everything over? And I decided that satire was the best thing. That the format that I've used, you see, it's a means by which I can get over the most points, get everything I want to over at once.
Yeah.
That's why I used that vehicle. That's why this is neurotypical society infiltration man. It's got a certain attitude, it's got a certain approach that you just don't get in Jessica Kingsley. Mummy's little lambkins has a disorder, or I am a victim of my own nature. That's what, yeah, or books about autistic people written by parents for parents. Well, that's got nothing to do with autistic people. We are parents! You know, like the Klingon Empire or something. We have the flaming sword of God's authority, so what if we're not autistic? We've got children who are! And that's, you're like, alright, your parents, put the knife down, put the gun down, put the kitchen utensil down, you know, put the baby alarm down, put the baby monitor down. So I was getting a bit sick of this non-representation by people who believe they represent their own autistic people more than the autistic people, because it's always vulnerable autistic people get represented by parents. So my son Charles is now 30 and has a degree from Cambridge and 2 children. You don't really read that, okay? It's more like Charles writes something saying, my mother helped me through heaven and hell, my mother saved my life. Because these parents martyr themselves to their children, and they are great heroes of mine, parents. But we're talking about self-representation, we're talking about self-advocacy here. So I went to this woman and I explained to her what I was going to do, and she goes, yes, you can't. And she got really sick. I felt like I was standing in front of the headmistress. She can't. She said, books about autism, though I've written by professors, Cambridge professors, Oxford professors, all sorts of professors. Or they're
people
written by
with qualifications.
People with qualifications. I have qualifications. Or parents.
Yeah.
Parents. Or they're written by people, their experiences, which can be very... Let me tell you a story, she said. They can be very hard, these experiences. Let me tell you a story. She said, I had next door neighbours who were academics. They had a child who was autistic and he wanted to gouge out his eyes, and he loved setting fire to things. And eventually that child, he blinded himself and he burned down the house. It was a hell of a thing. It happened down the road. Oh, that's autism. Very serious thing to write about. Serious thing to read about. Oh, autism. I said, oh, thank you very much. And it came out and went, and within a few years I published the book. That's a true story.
Okay, cool. You've heard quite a few personal issues, such as your social experiences at the Polytechnic and the Buddhist camp of North London, and the Buddhist camping retreats.
Buddhafield.
At the Buddhafield, and the Mills and Boone books.
Oh,
what made you include these experiences?
Well, you learn a lot about the world and yourself from these environments. Being actually lied about in a polytechnic for several years by weird student political societies and being genuinely persecuted. This happened for a short while. I mean, it's just pathetic. It's the only time in my life I've ever been innocent of something being done to me. Really innocent. It was incredible. People embarrassed, people didn't know what to do. You know, the people involved ended up, they couldn't face me. You know, of course, it all blew over.
Yeah.
But there's still people walking around considered me to be some psychotic. You know. Do I look psychotic to you? What do you think? Eh? Do you feel comfortable sitting next to me? Tell me. Exactly. Some people, you know, they see me come. You can tell I'm not paranoid because other people are frightened of me. If you're paranoid, it's you frightened. How can you be imagining stuff if other people go, oh my God, get out the way? It's great. It's the only time I've ever been able to frighten other people. I was given this power, and I played that guy because I was so hyperactive as a teenager, and man in his 20s as opposed to now. I was so hyperactive, you see, all this caged up, pent up energy, and couldn't really relate to people like I can now. So it's like the student political society started to lie about me, and all these stupid students believed everything they got told. So I was like this. It was hilarious, this monster, you know. The second year I was there, it was the first time I lived with a girlfriend, and all these women had been told I was like a deranged sexual predator. And meantime, I'm in the flat in Hackney with the girlfriend. I'm not interested in it, but so after that I wasn't interested in anyone anyway, because you know I'm like, these girls are mad. You know, I decided to make a commitment to myself. We wouldn't go near anyone unless there was a relationship involved. So I was in this semi-celibate state for the rest of my life, which has been a vow that has stood me in good stead, ladies and gentlemen. My best female friend is a woman I met in that polytechnic in my first year, signed the register of my wedding. Yet still, there are all these ex-students out there thinking I'm this deranged, lascivious monster, you know. Hello, my dear. And that's the blokes thinking that. So you know. And can I just add by saying, sexual predator in the Poly of North London? I must have been the only one. I mean, all those men in there, I must have been the only one. They were such gentlemen. All the males in the Poly of North London, not kidding, they would write poems and they go down on one knee. Courtly love was the order of the day, you know. I was like this thing. I was avoiding everybody, is what actually happened. I don't think they could think of anything else.
Okay.
Apart from psychotic, perverted. Well, what else is there, you know, because I wasn't a Tory.
Okay.
But that would have been called a Tory, would have been worse than anything, ladies and gentlemen. And the moral of this story is, if you've got any teenage daughters, you know, keep them away from me. Go on.
So at the what happened at the Buddhist?
Oh, we had a great time. We'd meditate all day, and then we get our clothes off at night. And we jump in these 2 metre wide hot tubs full of water heated by a radiator over a fire. That's about it.
Okay, but that's
so
not
all
what
the
you
women in that
actually
situation
wrote for.
thought I was perfectly safe, ladies and gentlemen. So make of that what you will. I don't know what the boys thought.
Okay,
What
now
did I write?
the truth behind that, because it's not what you said in your book.
What have I said in my book?
How some of the women would come up to you and would sort of question
Oh,
why
yeah.
you was there and stuff.
Yeah, I remember in Butterfield there was an awful lot of very egomanic women. It wasn't about sex, it was about ego.
Yeah.
They'd come up to you and start talking a load of rubbish to you. One of them, there was a sequence going around at the time where they ask you a question, and it's something you can only agree to. They ask you a second question, it's something you get about 4 of these. Then you get the proposition,
Yeah.
which you're meant to agree to. Well, the proposition's got nothing to do with the first 4 questions, that's what he's referring to. And I'd be like, well, no.
So,
But you agree with the other 4 propositions. But it's nothing to do with the 5th, you know. Because they thought I was stupid. Or you just get talked at. That's what he's talking about. It's either, there were 2 main techniques these idiots would use with me, because I looked a bit soft. Which is either this sequence, or they just talk at you with all this information, because you overwhelm you. They'd ask you the infinite question. The infinite question is where you talk to somebody and you ask them the infinite question. It's got various caveats. You start on a point of information of specific, then you go into a specific other point of information, the 3rd point of information. You remember all this in the book. And the 4th point of information, and you stand there, and it's just talking rubbish. But it sounds like a coherent question. But it's not a coherent question. It's somebody quoting a lot of information at you, a bit of information, and a second bit of unrelated information is bolted on. Then a 3rd bit of unrelated information is bolted on. Then a 4th bit, and it looks like an intelligent question. It's something you do to vulnerable people because you think they're stupid, and you give them what appears to be a coherent information structure, and it's not. And that's what's in the book. It's a fine example of what's now under the umbrella term of bullying, but it's something certain kinds of neurotypicals will do to people.
Yeah.
And it's in that section about how NTs, as we call them, often have this need to fight, because they get so traumatized in education and maturity to become something and make something of themselves.
Okay.
That when they find the vulnerable, like us, it's an overwhelming social situation. You look like that, you know. There's what I look like in the world, and then there's me, and it kind of goes like that, depending on how safe you are. This mask pulls away from the face, and you can be real, you see. And you kind of travel backwards and forwards.
Okay.
Sometimes you can be more present than others. And with me, I get more and more hyper and entertaining as a defence mechanism, really, because you get overwhelmed. So, because you look stupid, so you get people. One in every so many people you meet, and this is what happened in the Butterfield situation, they want to, take the P word out of you. They get this urge to attack, and that's what they want.
Okay, and so you also referenced the Miles and Boone books. Mills and Boone books.
See, a woman said that, then. They know, don't you dare.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The female voice you may hear occasionally is my wife, Helen.
Bound and gagged on the sofa, yeah. It's one of those houses, folks.
Shh.
Welcome to London.
Anyway, so you reference these books quite often in for your your own book. So,
I do.
So what?
Well, it's the antithesis of being an Aspie. Is this sort of empathetic hormonal pornography of neurotypicals. Oh, Evadne, I love you so, my knees are weak. Oh, Claude, my heart is beating 10 to the dozen. Oh, Evadne, oh. the doctor-nurse romances, where it takes them forever
Yeah.
to do a simple thing like fall in love and have sex. Well, they don't. They usually just fall in love. There's a line of Mills and Newton called Blaze, which is full of hot stuff now. The way the market's gone. It's basically I picked on Mills and Boon as a representation of the antithesis of our kind, to know us by what we are not.
Okay.
Yes.
There is and it's been quite clear in this interview so far, there is a lot of humour in your book. Was this something intentional, or was it just something that occurred while writing? And are you worried that Aspies might not even understand it? Understand
It's funny. It's a serious thing. Look, people may reach between your legs. Look at this. Does this look like a joke to you? Exactly. If I drop that, it's not funny. That hurts. It was the main and best vehicle to say everything I wanted to.
Okay.
You can say stuff. The fool in King Lear can say stuff nobody else can.
Yeah.
The archetypal trickster and this fool who studied that. So satire and comedy and humour, it's the best way of getting the points over. And you can say them in a bigger way and a more effective and more sincere way. Being funny, well, I come from Liverpool, and I guess it's in the blood, really. It's just part of one of your sort of techniques of relating survival. You shouldn't take the world too seriously, you know. It's a hell of a thing. Life, death, is far too serious to be taken too seriously, I tell you. Could be dead tomorrow, you know, could be dead any time. Whoa, you know.
Very true.
I knew if I used to live with a fellow like that. He was always going on about, he was a very strange man. And he was always going, for real, about how, you know, could be dead any time. And when he first came to our house to sort of meet everyone, to live with us, he gave us a monologue.
Yeah.
At one point he jumped out of his seat and talked to us all about how death could happen to anyone at any time. He mentioned a little old man who went halfway across the road, but he didn't get to the other side because he got run over, and he was laughing his head off. But we let him in anyway. He's a wonderful bloke. He always paid the bills, and he always paid on time.
That's good.
It's true.
Why do you use the term neurotypicals or NTs? Is that an actual term, or is that something you just made up for the book?
It's actually a proper clinical term. Neurotypicals, people with a typical neural makeup, chemistry, structure, average brain structure, NT.
Yeah.
It's become a very useful term to autistic people to define what they are not, because it's originally, when I was 16, I had to sneak in W.H. Smith's and buy a copy of The Naked Civil Servant. I've seen the film. And the gay writing was the only source of reference I had for my experience of being part of the world, being alienated from it for reasons I couldn't entirely understand. I've always had gender and sexuality binary, so I've always been this sort of blokey heterosexual male. But I've done a huge amount of reading, and you gain a powerful respect for feminist and gay writers because of what they've written and because of what they've been there first, basically.
Yeah.
To make sense of a world that's not really making sense.
Because they're on the stigmatized.
Because they've been rejected and ostracised and an oppressed minority. So that's why I use the term NT.
Right.
It is basically to define what we are not and say, look, there's a race of people out there, we're not part of them.
Yeah.
And, we're all the same really, we're all a bit on the spectrum. Look, it's not true. We've got empathy for our own kind, we've got relationships, we've got whole families of autistic people.
Yeah.
And all these people trying to make out we're all the same thing really, it simply isn't the case, and it doesn't help. You need to be with your own kind to see yourself in order to develop positively. There's a lot of parents forcing state of affairs on the kids. It isn't natural. It's like Christian parents forcing their children to be heterosexual when they're not. It's just perverted. And what I always say to parents is learn from your children how to relate to your children in your children's way, and then they'll be okay. But there's an awful lot of people, we're all the same. No, you're not all the same thing, really.
Yeah.
And it's offensive, and it doesn't work like that.
But I think the recent episode of The A Word that's currently shown on BBC has just demonstrated that.
It's excruciating, isn't it? It's basically a form of parent porn to show how mad neurotypical parents and family can be when you're an autistic child.
Yeah.
The only sane one in it is the Aspie kid. He just wants to listen to his music and go walking every morning and mind his own business. But there's these mental people he's biologically attached to doing all sorts of weird things. There's the embarrassing father. There's the evil mother, the wicked witch of the West, you know. It's so written so the mother's in denial and forces NT down the kid's throat. Yeah. So recently he had a fever. And what happened was he dropped his guard and his defences. And you know what happens when you get sick and you get more emotional You get more vulnerable, and that's why he suddenly started empathizing and relating to the picture in the
Yeah.
album. And the mother read about, oh, when a child gets a fever, their autism diminishes. No, it's like, oh no, wait a minute, when my daughter gets a fever, her homosexuality diminishes, and she's less of a lesbian, and she fancies men, and then she could get married and have children, and everything would be okay, and she could join the church. No, Mum, I'm just ill, and I'm human, and I relate. Okay, get over it now. Where's me, copy of Diva magazine? That's how it really works, and then the kid recovers, and he just goes back to being a self-centered Aspie.
Aspies are known for going off topic. Did you struggle with this when writing your book and trying to keep focused in doing so?
Did you know there's a place down here called Vinyl Deptford? It's great, I love it.
Yes, I do know. Yes, good demonstration, but
Nice weather we're having.
answer to the question.
Did you ask the question again? I've gone to the subject.
Going back to the question, was it very hard trying to keep the focus and to keep on topic?
No,
while
because you're writing
the
a book, you see, there's this process of layering it section by section. You get a concept, an overall concept, because I guess I've read a lot of books. So it's this thing about writing a piece, and you do that by focusing on that. So I developed the concept as I went along.
Yeah.
Over the 7 months that I put it together, or it took many years to get it out. This basic concept of a journey of becoming a neurotypical. First of all, you talk about us, and then you talk about how to be. And at one point it really went, I was exploring my own experience of all the lies. And you do that by, going into yourself and just sitting in pubs and cafes and drink, a cup of tea in the pub.
Yeah.
And just absorbing the whole thing and the energy and writing a few thousand words. And how did I actually do it? How do I do it? And you have to put the autistic person into a sort of state of mind.
Okay. What age range was you pretty much focusing? Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, question again.
Okay. What age range was you hoping that this book would appeal to the most?
Well, it's meant to be for a mature age range because it's got sort of phrases like "listen to me, you retarded bastard" in it, and it's got plenty of sections on how to find sex, how to have sex, how to lose sex, how to think about sex, how to get it back again, how to get good at it, how to accept the fact you're bloody awful, and ultimately how to compromise with somebody else who's in the same boat, really.
Fair enough.
I'm glad both my parents are dead, they're not going to see this. Embarrassing. Very embarrassing. I've got an alibi for both of them, by the way.
I'm sure you have. A lot of books out there refer to gender a lot, and most part they kept that out, and for the most part you kept that out. You kind of tried to make it so that it wasn't, where they did not try to make it so that men and women would.
It's a bit of a hot potato. At the beginning
yeah.
I explained, look, I'm not an autistic woman.
Yeah.
And there's a whole world for autistic women because gender ID is not appropriate for male or female on the spectrum. And guys aren't bothered about that. They're blokes that just ignore those issues and go around being blokes in a blokey world. Women, on the other hand, don't have that luxury, so autistic women are exposing the fact that they're not men in women's bodies, but they don't, female gender ID doesn't work either.
Yeah.
So they're talking about gender neutral, gender non-specific. In other words, the first thing I do in my show is debunk gender. I think it's a red herring. You get a lot of women who are blokes. And it's as simple as that. So at the beginning I do say all that, and I say, look, I can only write from my perspective.
Yeah, so it's a bit like that you can, in gay men and gay women, you can have the one that's very feminist, and you can also have one
watching the
that's very...
femme pretty universal
Yeah.
according to gay people, apparently. That's what they tell me.
Yeah.
But the book does work for women because I've had
Yeah.
women say it's okay.
Okay.
Because of the issues involved and what it's about. The next project is looking like it's going to be a women's book, which is just going around and interviewing women. It's going to turn into an absolute bloodbath. All they're going to talk about is neurotypical women, and they ain't going to be pretty.
And the man, no, I won't go there. That would be pushing it, I think. That's sexism. Okay, so in going with that, your book is about Aspie survival. in a neurotypical world. So how hard is that for an Aspie?
Well, it depends if you're in the closet or not. People like myself are in the closet till I was 41. You just spend your whole life being called names, finding people who can go along with what you're doing, being good at your jobs, and hiding in dark corners. I was always in low-paid jobs because my ADHD wouldn't give me the luxury of being able to get a career together or relate to a career. You're constantly facing a situation Saga Nora did in The Bridge in Series 3 when she's cornered by an internal affairs officer who says, your colleagues say you're unstable. And she says, I'm not unstable, I'm different. It's the only thing she can say. She's not out as autistic. And she's got a major responsibility as a professional, and there's no defence, and she's all on her own. That's what it's like being an adult with autism, really. So yeah, it's very much about being somebody who goes undercover and has to... Because neurotypicals can only really tolerate themselves. All this accept difference business and being different-minded. I think the neurotypical world will always be fascist. And particularly America is hilarious for its eugenicism. They only really want NT. When they talk about curing, they're talking about genetic racial purity. They want purebred Aryans, you see. So yeah, that was another reason why I wrote the book the way I did. It's to highlight what our society is like to people who are different. A whole different operating system and a unique way of minding, which can work perfectly bloody well, but you look weird.
There's a lot of great advice and sense of hope in the book. And what is the one thing you hope that the Aspie will take from reading this book?
Identity, positive identity, strength of willpower, but above all, self-acceptance and self-love, and positive take on us being this race and a kind, that there are many of us. And that we're not all a bunch of soft people who've got to be nice all the time, which seems to be how autistic people have been brought up by the parents. That we're not tragic victims of bullying, boo-hoo. That we're not these sweet, pathetic figures, that we are earthy, visceral, sexual, aggressive human beings, just like any other kind of humanity.
And are you planning to write more books? If so, what would the next one going to be about?
Well, yeah, there was going to be the Guerilla Aspies guide to the office was originally going to be, but I need to get on with the women's book. To counterbalance the first book, there needs to be one that's nothing but autistic women speaking. Where you just edit it, you know, with my wife. And the kind of attitude is going to be hilarious. It's going to be the kind of book that your wife Helen wants to read.
Yes, I know.
She'll probably have a hand in editing it at this rate. She's going to pass it around. I want to make this baby proud. There's a woman who's a friend of mine in Kent University who's doing a doctorate, and she wanted to write stuff for the Guerilla Aspies book and make a commentary on it, so we could publish that as well. And she looks like a bit of a dude, you know. A certain attitude going to be involved in this book. I
think maybe confidence enough. Maybe we could write a book about Aspies in the workplace.
You could actually.
Like a survival guide. When you're in a job, this is what to do.
Death to them all.
Without resorting to the shotgun.
Well, this is the going postal thing. Hello, everybody. Look what I brought to work. Now, kids, we're going to learn about mass murder. Autistic people are quite famous for that in America, apparently. Well, I thought you left the school only a few months ago. I'm back, you know. It's not funny, is it, folks?
No, but yes and no.
You don't think I'm a sexual predator, do you? Yeah. You're a nice person. You're a fine figure of a man, aren't you, Daniel?
It's a good job I know you well.
I'd like to know you better.
We'll leave it there. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was Paul Wady. This is the book, Guerilla Aspies. Please buy it. It's a good read. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, thank you and goodbye.